I'm Professor Marc-André Léger from the John Molson School of Business at Concordia University, and this is the lecture for Business Technology Management, Business Information Systems Risks, Security, and Audit, also known as BTM 440, for Lesson 11, covering Cobit 5 as it can be used for information security management. The first element that we're going to need to take under consideration when we're looking at a particular framework or methodology that's being used to implement information security is how does that framework define information security? So in this context of Cobit 5, which is from ISACA, as we all know, because we've been using it in this course, their definition is that information security ensures that within the enterprise, information is protected against disclosure to unauthorized users. So that's confidentiality. Improper modification, integrity, and non-access when required, or availability. Keeping in mind that we find in this definition the three components of our information security objectives that we've been talking about all semester, also known as the CIA triangle. So really, ISACA is defining the role of information security in relationship specifically to the three elements of the CIA triangle. The major drivers of Cobit 5 for information security include the need to describe information in an enterprise context. So this is looking at the idea that enterprise security and information security are connected, but that information security is a subset, if you wish, of enterprise risk management as a whole. So it's one of the many things that the organization must manage as a part of doing business. That understanding that risk is unavoidable, because risk is the flip side of the coin of opportunity. So as a business, there always will be, we hope, opportunities, and these opportunities are going to be rendering the possibility that there is going to be risk. And we can't avoid risk, or we can avoid some risk, but we can't avoid all risk. But the idea is the need for the organization to keep the risk at an acceptable level. As well, the fact that we need to maintain availability to systems. People in our organizations and our different stakeholders need to be able to access the information. Information has value because it helps us to execute our business processes. So we need the information. We also need to comply with all the laws and regulations that are, in the field of information security. There's a multiple of them. We can think of things like privacy laws, but many others as well that we've been talking about all semester long. And so that is linked to the what is driving security as well. Cobit 5, the intention is to link it with other standards and frameworks that are out there. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel completely. We want to be able to find the best solutions that are there, and based on a risk management approach, choose the best elements. Again, this is in line with what we have been talking throughout the semester, what we have been talking about. So there's a lot of benefits to using Cobit 5, and one of them is the reducing the complexity, increasing the cost effectiveness, because we're using things that are already out there. We're using standards. There's a lot of information available about these standards. There's a lot of support material available for these standards, and so this is how we're making the whole thing more cost effective and less complex. Information security frameworks like Cobit 5 have shown increased user satisfaction. So because we're relying on things that are reliable, as weird as that may sound. It improves the integration of information security throughout the enterprise. So we're really taking a global view of the business, and looking at information security as through a global lens. We're gonna make decisions based on risk, and so we're gonna hopefully are gonna be making better decisions. It's gonna improve how we prevent, how we detect, how we recover from incidents. It's gonna reduce the impact of incidents, increase the support for innovation and competitiveness. As I've said from the beginning of this presentation, it connects risk with opportunity. It doesn't totally disconnect it, as other approaches sometimes have in the past. And so we recognize in Cobit 5 the need for opportunities, and the fact that risk is the unavoidable effect that many of these opportunities are going to create. So in order to manage security in the most cost-effective way, and to better understand the role and the effect of information security in the organization, it's going to have a more, I guess the word would be holistic, although that word is often overused and misused when we're talking about information security. So when we're going to be implementing Cobit 5, there's some guidance, and that's really what makes this so useful. The guidance, the principles and the guidance that are in there. So really it's providing us, the framework of a recipe of how to implement information security, about policies, principles, frameworks, processes that we need to have in place, how these processes are going to be working at a high level, what are the deliverables going to be. It provides us information as to organizational structures, roles, responsibilities. If you remember from a few weeks ago, the Raki, who's in charge, who needs to be informed, who needs to be a decision maker in the different roles that relate to information security. It does this by, considering, the organizational culture, but also the ethical and human factors that are involved in affecting the success of information security governance and information security management in the organization. It has, a lot of support for how we're going to do it, what are the functions, what are the capabilities that we need, and what are the skills and competencies that are required in the organization to help us to give us the chance to hopefully do a better job. It's not a guarantee that it's going to be better, but it's providing you the guidance, the tools, the framework, everything that you need to have a better chance of doing a good regards to information risk. So there's a whole bunch of these processes, and you can see them here in this map. So at the top level, we have the EDM, so the evaluate, direct, and monitor. And basically, starting with the government framework and the governance framework, and how we're going to put in place the governance principles that are going to guide us through the whole process. And so at a high level, right, the governance being directed by the top management of the organization, by the stakeholders, by the stockholders, by the board of directors. And then from there, going down to the plans that we're going to want to put in place in the AP align, plan, and organize, which then leads us to actually doing it. So build, acquire, implement in the organization, and then the delivery of services in the organization through the DSS processes. So deliver, service, and support, which are at the bottom. In parallel, on the right-hand side, you can see the monitor, evaluate, and assess. So these are the continuously internal and external audit processes that are going to be in place to ensure that we have we're dealing with the conformity issues, we're complying with the requirements, we're doing some internal and external audits, keeping in mind historically ISACA has been very strong in the area of auditing. It's basically originally their main area of expertise was in auditing, and so that transpires throughout the whole standard of Cobit 5 and still with the current release Cobit 2019. So one of the elements of the EDM area is going to be the delivery of benefits to the organization. So giving us the opportunity to optimize the contribution to the business from business processes, IT services, and IT assets resulting from investments made by IT at acceptable costs. So this is what we're trying to do. And so we want to be able to do this in an efficient way. So here, as an example of this process, right, this is what you're seeing here. So it's giving you a description of what this is. And then the next is the purpose statement. So in this case, securing optimal value from IT-enabled initiatives, services, and assets, etc. And then we have the security-specific process goals and metrics. So as security practitioners, that's the part that is going to directly affect what we're going to be doing when we want to go and implement this. And of course, when we're going to be auditing against that, ensuring that the organization has these processes in place from a security point of view. So the security-specific goal, the process goal, is the benefit, costs, and risk of information security investments are balanced and managed and contribute optimal value. And in order to do that, we're going to look at some metrics, because it's an important aspect to us to try to reduce the subjectivity and to make it more objective. So we're going to be using metrics. And so here the example of the related metrics, percentage of risk reduction versus budget deviation, the level of stakeholder satisfaction with the information security measures in place based on surveys. So this is typically what, when you're looking at Cobit 5, this is typically what the different components, the different processes are going to be looking like. And so these are some of the ones that relate to what we're going to be doing. And so so this one, for example, manage enterprise architecture. So this is the fact that we need a common architecture of our business processes and how we're going to be developing or implementing or making decisions about new investments based on an integrated view through a system architecture. And so, making sure that we have all the correct building blocks and the purpose statement. But then again, specific to us, the process goals from an information security point of view. So making sure that information security requirements are embedded within the architecture. That's the first one. Two, that it's understood by all the different stakeholders, and that it's understood to be a part of enterprise architecture. So it's a matter of fact that we need, when we're designing something, we need to take under account security as part of it. Number three, that it's aligned and that it evolves with the changes in the architecture. And number four, that their frameworks, security frameworks are used, the methodologies are used, so that we can enable reuse. So we're not continuously reinventing the wheel. And so associated with that, again, we have all the specific metrics associated with that. Again here, the AP003. So the same idea here, that about the processes that relate to the controls that we have in place. The another example, evaluate value optimization as a governance practice. And so here, specific security-specific inputs and security-specific outputs that are going to be related to that, and how does this connect to Cobit 5? So I just looked at a couple of them here, but this gives you an idea of what this would look like. And as you go through the overall documents, since we're in the ISACA accredited program, you have all the information for this, and you have all the detail of all the various controls and the various enabling processes that are part of Cobit 5. So from an organizational point of view, if we're using Cobit 5 to help us to manage our information security structure, then Cobit, and it mentions that Cobit 5 is looking at the models, or the what you do as an organization, the different roles and responsibilities and structures that you need to put in place in order to assure accountability on how you're doing information security in your organizations, and how this is going to work, and what are the roles and responsibilities, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of the different options that you have. So the traditional roles that we've been talking about since the beginning is the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. Then we're going to have also a steering committee that's going to be providing support and giving governance and high-level guidance. A more specific information security manager, so more of a technical hands-on role than the CISO. Enterprise Risk Management Committee with a global view of enterprise risk management. And as part of that, there's going to be the different information security custodians. And so they're going to be looking at the particularly of how this is going to be implemented in the strategic business units or the different divisions of a larger organization. But it's really a top-down approach, whereas there's shared responsibilities. And that, the top of the pyramid is the Chief Information Security Officer providing support. So as we're also looking at the leadership, we also need to consider the cultural aspects of this. I mean, if we're going to affect behaviors of individuals, again here I remind you all the discussions and information that we've had throughout this course about the human factor and the role of individuals in the organization and external to the organization, and how this is going to be affecting your security in a very, very big way. So definitely we won't be surprised to hear that culture is going to play an important role in the management of information security in organizations, and definitely being an important component of this in Cobit 5 that recognize this as they should, as to the role of culture and organizational culture. So, measuring behaviors, having benchmarks that relate to security culture. We can think obviously of everything relating to passwords and the strength of passwords. Adherence to the different practices of the organization. Here is mentioned change management, but it's one of many components of that. Ensuring that the leadership is showing the example and is influencing at all levels of leadership, have a very strong influence, and they need to be shown as supporting, as promoting, as developing information security as a key value to our organization. And then also reinforce desirable behavior. So we have incentives in place or metrics in place in which we're going to be able to demonstrate, support and reinforcement, positive reinforcement of good cybersecurity behaviors. So another aspect of the Cobit 5 strategy is the role of information. So information is the main subject of information security, obviously, but information is also a key enabler. So we need to examine and reveal relevant security information, like the strategies, the budget, the policies, definitely awareness material. Again, all things that we've been talking about that are all important components of of how we're going to have how Cobit 5 is supporting how information security should be implemented and managed in organizations. So, and this is through all the different parts of the information life cycle. So we have, as I said, many different kinds of information, security related information, and so different players are going to have different roles to play in the updating or the promoting or the ownership of these different types of information, and this is well documented and explained in detail in the Cobit 5. So as well as information, there's also services, infrastructure, models, service models, capabilities that need to be built in to as part of our strategy and as part of the Cobit 5 framework of how we're going to be implementing our information security strategy. So security awareness program, security architecture, security assessments, incident response things, processes like business continuity, DRP, BCP, incident management, protections that need to be adequate regarding malware, external attacks, intrusion attempts, and how we're going to be monitoring all of this, and how we're going to be providing alerts. So a lot of technical components in there as well. Ensuring that we have the right skills and competencies. We already talked about awareness, but here we're talking about more than just awareness. We're talking of ensuring that the individuals that have a significant cybersecurity role in the organization, and really that when we think about it, that's like everyone has a role, and everyone's role is significant. So and everyone needs to be aware of cybersecurity, but everybody needs also cybersecurity training at different levels, and everyone needs to have the skills and competencies, particularly when we get into our more like cybersecurity departments or information technology departments. We need to have in place more than just awareness, but we need to have continuous education training programs so that the skills, we ensure that the skills are there, but also that the skills are maintained and continuously upgraded. So in the governance areas, the risk management areas, the security operations area, there's a lot of work that needs to be done and that needs to be continuously done in order to develop and maintain these skills. So as we said at the beginning, ISACA and Cobit 5 is connected with a whole bunch of different other frameworks, and that we're going to be going to these other frameworks in order to help us to implement Cobit 5, but also to help us to do a good job in cybersecurity. In this course, we've looked at the NIST framework, we've looked at the ISO framework, 27001, 27002, we've looked at the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We've been actually, this whole course is relying on a whole bunch of different frameworks that we looked at throughout the semester. And so in Cobit 5, there's all the information required to connect to these other frameworks as well. And there's guidance on how you can, like, for example, PCI DSS, so credit card payment and payment card systems, how we can comply with the PCI DSS if we're an organization that needs to process payment cards by using Cobit 5 in order to help us to achieve that. So that's the kind of information that is available from ISACA to help you to follow the requirements that you have in compliance or conformity requirements that you have by looking to Cobit 5 and to the other frameworks that are out there. So there's a lot of guidance available to help you with that. Here I do want to point out, and I've put some additional links. This is the sort of a going over the material that was provided here with the course to give you a summary. But there's a lot more detailed information that's available, and I've put in some additional PDFs, material from ISACA, as well as some links to some other videos that you can go much more in depth into Cobit 5. And certainly before you attempt the CISA certification exam that's part of this course, hopefully you'll have looked at that. So thank you.